I was just saying, you could have done many things after high school. An outstanding student as well as an outstanding swimmer. I'm sure your academic interests could have taken you in a lot of directions, and I'm sure your athletic interests probably brought a lot of attention in terms of recruitment. You chose to go out east and go to the Ivy League. I'm interested to hear your recruiting story or how you went about deciding where you wanted to go to school and what that next chapter in your life would be.
Well, I had no intentions to go to Harvard. I was a Detroit boy. I was either going to go to Michigan State or University of Michigan. That it just seemed, it's like you don't know of anything outside of Michigan. The furthest road trip I had done was to Akron, Ohio, or the Mackinac Bridge. So you're very limited. But Harvard asked me for an interview. And I went to the interview, and again, I wasn't uptight. I just was relaxed, had my interview, and they liked that. Not just the swimming. There was the teachers, gave me good reports because of my personality, and I had won a short story competition, in Detroit. So there was all of these other qualities that appealed to Harvard at the time, and they didn't have a great swimming team then. They do now. And so I knew that if I went out there, my swimming career would be over. But if I went to U of M, I would continue with swimming. But then, my dad did not want me to go out east. He wanted me to continue swimming because he loved going to meets and be a timer, and that was his life. But I think what set the thing in motion where I went out was that Harvard gave you total financial support. You get accepted, you don't pay a penny if your parents have no money. Okay, and my parents, my sister in college and my younger brother would be in college the following year. So that financial, whereas University of Michigan or Ohio State, Michigan, they'd give you partial scholarships, which could be rescinded if you did not swim. See, whereas Harvard, once you're in, they said you can quit, you don't have to swim once you're accepted. So it just seemed like a thing you would not want to give up. And plus the reputation of the school. Although it scared me shitless, to be honest. To go out where, you felt that everyone was going to be smarter than you. You felt that you only got there because of, a decent academia, but, a bit of sports news, and that it'd be hard. And it was hard in some ways, but then it gave me things, which allowed me to go then to Korea and elsewhere. So I'm thankful I did go out there, and it made me realize swimming is not the only thing in life. Sometimes I think I should have stopped swimming when I was, let's say, at Harvard, and joined Hasty Puddings and done theatrical, work as well as. But see, by swimming you still have to work out, and so it's pretty time consuming. And then in the summers I'd work at a pool as a pool director. So, but no regrets. There was it filled me out and brought a new world to me. Especially anybody that goes away to school from home, it's a learning experience. So it was my 18. I've left Detroit. I'm in Boston. You're trying to find your way around Boston. So that was and the friends I met during those 4 years, I still have in many ways. So
I want to follow up
I'm
on.
not hearing you.
You don't hear me?
Now I do.
Okay. I want to follow up with, with the swimming there, so, you referred to it that if you went to Harvard, your swimming career would be over. Was that an admission that you wouldn't be able to train with the intensity that you had to that point? You described that you continued to swim. Did you go faster in college?
I'm not sure, Mark. I wouldn't have gone much faster.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked out, but it just wasn't the same as if I'd stayed in Michigan, because you were geared to go through the Olympics. We worked out. We had a good team. We had an All-American relay team in the 400 that year, or my sophomore year or something. And I think twice I got on All-American swim, the relay teams. So we did well, but it wasn't that group, because at Harvard they didn't expect you to be the dominant swimmer. You were expected to do your scholastic studies and extracurricular things as well. So it's like it wasn't the hothouse of okay, you're a swimmer, you've got to go to work out, you got to do this and this and this. So it was a whole different setup.
You mentioned the Olympics, and it reminded me of something I wanted to ask you. Do you have memories of the 56 or 60 Olympic trials in Detroit? That's been something that's been talked about by a few of the swimmers as being kind of a big deal when all the greatest swimmers in the country came to Detroit for 2 straight Olympic trials. You would have been, I'm guessing, 14 at the 60 Olympic trials. Did you go?
No.
No.
I don't know why. I think I just went north to the cottage. To be honest, I heard Doug talk about it, and I go, wow. And I don't know why.
That would have been a cool thing to go to, right?
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember in that time, maybe 2 years later, I swam in a meet against Murray Rose, who was Australia's big swimmer. And it was the 200 meters. This was in Akron, Ohio, I think an international, some kind of meet. And I knew his times were much better than mine were at that time. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be ahead at the end of the 100 meters. So I went out really fast. And my cousin would film me, show me ahead of Murray Rose, at the end of the 100. But she didn't show the end where I faltered. So that's about all I remember of that time, But yeah, gosh, I missed it.
The other question about Brennan that I wanted to ask you is the legendary.
It was cold.
The legendary pool temperature. That's the biggest thing that I've heard in the 3 beautiful pools. I mean, can you tell me about your memories of that facility?
But we'd get there at dawn. We'd do kick a mile, swim a mile, pull a mile. That was how you warmed up. And then go into workout. And then you'd come out of the pool for lunch break. We would wrap ourselves in blankets and sit in the sun to try to warm up. It was just, and the reason the water was so cold, they were leaking, we were told. And therefore they had to keep putting cold water into them. So I guess, well, when you're working out, once you're warmed up, it's fine. But when you're extended periods of your body trying to stay warm, by the time you left, everyone was shaking. But we did it,
Amazing stories that I've heard from there. So let me jump back to Harvard with you. Tell me when the artistic fire was lit inside of you. Was that much earlier, or was that something that you started to find later? When did you find that part?
Well, that was much later. So much of my life academically at that time is you're programmed. If you get good grades, you're going to be the doctor, lawyer, whatever. And I just assumed I would just go along that path. So I went through Harvard, got a degree in history, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. and history offered the most electives. Okay, so I took history as a major, but in that I did a couple art courses. There were no studio courses at that time, which there are now, where you could take a painting course and actually paint, or furniture making course and actually build something. But I did a impressionist, art history course. It was wonderful. So that kind of instilled in me a love of the arts, but I didn't think much of it. After Harvard, I was going to possibly go to Harvard Business School, but they allowed me to delay it, and for 5 years. So I thought, okay, I will go to the Peace Corps. It was right in the Vietnam War. I wasn't looking for a deferment, but it sounded exciting to go abroad. And so I applied, got in, and they sent me to Korea. And I went there for 2 years. First year, I did teaching English as a second language. But then I was invited to work on a farm. Okay. And on that farm, I was the superintendent of a construction job. And I had never built anything. But the father, McClinchy, who ran this farm, said, the blueprints are in English. The Korean help can't read English. At least you can read English. Here are the blueprints, build. And I took it on. And so that time of working with my hands and thinking about the project was great. I thought, this is marvelous, and so I was using hands, which you don't necessarily use as a lawyer, you know what I mean? So when I finished Korea, I happened to be in Alaska helping my brother-in-law move there, and we were driving down the street. We saw this sign, Alaska Carpenters Training Center. We both went in, and they said, we can go there if we take a couple of tests, and they would pay us the first year to go to school. And it just seemed, wow. So I did it. I did a 4-year apprenticeship in carpentry, got to work in I chose bush work sites. So I'd go out to the Eskimo villages and build schools and housing and hospitals, which was a marvelous thing, and got my carpentry skills up to where I then decided I needed to go back and learn fine furniture. So I went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison for half a year to hone those skills, and then ended up at Penland School in North Carolina, where I stayed for 7 years, and then was headhunted to come to Tasmania, where I taught at the School of Art, and then eventually went from sculptural furniture into, practical, furniture into sculpture, pure sculpture, or sculptural furniture, you could even say, one-off, bespoke. And so by the time I got to Korea, I was in a few museums in America with my furniture, and so. And again, I tie it all back to swimming. None of this would have been achieved without having swum. So now my life is full circle in a way. So I'm here talking to you about what happened all those years ago.
That's one of the beautiful, stories and arts that I've heard. And, I really appreciate you bringing it back to swimming, that somebody who could go on and live such amazing chapters after their swimming career can still see a linear path in their success and the lessons they learned back to the swimming pool. And for you, things that you learned from Harry Hawk 60 years ago, they're still at work in your life. It's really cool.
Well, can I add an addendum to that?
Please.
Have you met Thomas Sullivan?
Not yet.
Okay. Anyways, one summer at Brennan, when we leave Brennan to warm up, have lunch and a nap, I said I would go to his house for a nap, and then we'd end up back at Patton because he was 5 years older. He would drive. He became like a mentor to me, academic mentor, because he was majoring in English at U of M, and I would have been 15, he would have been 20. Okay. He's the one that inspired me to start writing. And so it was that Thomas or Sully's push to write got me to write that short story, which won the prize in Detroit. See how that helps? So without Sully there, I probably never would have gotten that. And that helped get me into Harvard. I'm sure it did. You know, those kind of little awards like that, disassociated from swimming. But anyways, that's that.
Oh, that's great. You know, one of the questions I've been asking late in the interview is I ask each swimmer to kind of look back at their career. You know, I ask a really broad question in hopes that you can just go wherever you'd like to, as opposed to towards any specific thing I'm asking about. What are you most proud of from your swimming career, whether it be relationships, whether it be an accomplishment, whether it be a race? Wide open. What are you most proud of?
Well, proud. I'm proud. I guess the word for me would be gratitude. I'm most grateful to have spent those formative years with some really dynamic young people that have continued more or less, you know, throughout my life. And the records don't interest me as much as those personal connections you make with people that help shape you. I think I'd be the same person I am today if I hadn't set those state records, you know. And so, but the efforts to get to where you're doing what you do is, and those memories, you know, they're very special in one's life. And so that's where I would answer that, or how I would answer that question.
If I asked you to broaden that same question out to your life and your professional life and the things that you've experienced over the last 55 years after that swimming chapter ended, and I just reteed it, what are you most proud of as you look back at the totality of what you've accomplished?
That I had the almost the courage to strike out on what you would call the road less traveled. You know, to do what I've done meant going to far reaches of the world where you knew nothing, and to go there, not so much as an adventure, but just to go and learn what's there. You know, the German poet Rilke has a poem where he says, "I live my life in widening orbits. I may not reach the last, but I will give my all to it." And that way, for me, that's what swimming again instilled. You just keep going and going further and further, not so much in distance, but in experience. And you might not end up where, you know, you might want to, but you give your all to it. And that's what we were instilled with as young swimmers by Harry and our comrades, our swimmers, to give your all. You know, and the outcome is irrelevant. You just give your all.